It is Sunday, August the 24th, 10 a.m. Eastern Time on the East Coast of America. And it's time now for the Coffee with Frankie show, which we start with this theme song.
The Brooklyn line got a swagger sharp like a vintage wine. Everybody knows his name from porch to stoop. Hustle and dreams in every loop. In the park he struts, hits the handball wall. Echoes hear the stories when the shadows fall. Got 1,000 tales and a confident grin on the streets of Flatbush where legends begin. Frankie from Flatbush got the city glow, lighting up the borough with his every show. He's the heart of Brooklyn, never laying low. Frankie from Flatbush, always on the go. Bodega lights flicker when Frankie's near. He's got the rhythm, everybody cheers. Corner talks and sidewalk chalks his fame. In the Flatbush breeze, you'll hear his name. Underneath the subway on the Magic's real. Frankie's moves got that electric feel. From Atlantic Avenue to the urban hill, Flatbush Frankie's giving you a thrill. Frankie from Flatbush got the city glow, lighting up the borough with his every show. He's the heart of Brooklyn, never laying low. Frankie from Flatbush, always on the go. Bodega lights flicker when Frankie's near, lighting up the borough with his every show. He's the heart of Brooklyn, never laying low. Frankie from Flatbush, always on the go. Frankie from Flatbush got the city glow, lighting up the borough with his every show. He's the heart of Brooklyn, never laying low. Frankie from Flatbush, always on the go. Always on the go. Always on the go. Always on the go.
All right. Let me know if you can see and hear me okay in the chat. It's Coffee with Frankie time. This is the Coffee. I'm the Frankie. We got Jet stuff to talk about. Audio visual 100%. Phil Adams says, all right. Well, we like to hear that. But it's a lazy Sunday morning. It's a couple of days out from final cuts. And the Jets have already made some cuts. In case you missed the news, we did cut down some players already. In fact, 6 players. Yesterday, we cut Mario Goodrich, Samuel Jackson, Neil Johnson, Daimir Miller, Fatorma Mulba, and Pokey Wilson. 6 players, you're out of here. Get out of here. We don't want you here no more. So those players have been cut. If those were some of your favorites, I feel sorry for you. And so that's where we are. It's cut downs, trades, pickups, waiver claims. We'll see what comes of the next couple of days. We should probably get some news today about some of the players. I would think ahead of Tuesday's deadline, but we'll have to see how it plays out. Alan Dodge is here, the Book of Deuteronomy. Fantasy football draft week, not for me. Something I don't like about football is fantasy football. Not big on the fantasy football. Couldn't care less. Todd says cut down day is coming up. Who surprisingly makes the team? That's the question. So Rich Cimini is speculating about the 53-man. Biggest questions, he says, according to Chimney, will tight end Jeremy Ruckert make the 53? Yes, Chimney believes he will. Wide receiver Alan Lazard, I'd be surprised if he's cut. I think short-term IR or 53. What about the young wide receivers? Chimney says. Well, Aaron Glenn really talked up Jamal Pritchett after the game. Question is, do they trust him to return punts? He muffed one Friday night, but he also had a 41-yard return, which on a punt is remarkably good. I say he sticks, Chimney says. Brandon Smith deserves a spot too. Is there room for both? That probably means one of the vets would have to go. What about Melechi Corley? Scratchy Melechi. And Samini says, I don't think there's a scenario where he makes it. How will the defensive line sort itself out? Now, here's where I have a disagreement. Oh, no, he says it. The only locks are Williams, Johnson, McDonald, Phillips, Tufele, Clemens, and Briggs. Now, Briggs, he says probably Briggs, too. I mean, there's no way Briggs doesn't make it. We just traded for him. Why would we give up draft capital and then cut a guy? That doesn't make any sense. He says Cowart could be headed for IR. McGregor made a late push. I think if there's a odd man out, it's going to be Tufele. And then we hope to get Tufele on the practice squad. Just because the man had one Linsanity game in the first preseason game, you know, his everything else he's done in the NFL has been very bad. So, Doge says, not Malachi Corley. Yeah, Corley looks like maybe they could trade him somewhere. Somebody might believe in him. Maybe we could get something for him. Looks like he's on his way out. Chris Havern is here. Chris Havern, coffee hot, ready for some Jets talk. All right, I got some. Actually, this is cold coffee. You know, coffee's like pizza. Even when it's cold, it's good. You know, you got to love a caffeinated beverage. Dodester says, nobody cut Sam F. and Samuel. Well, we already did. Sorry, Sam. And he's a UCF guy, so I was rooting for him, but he just wasn't good enough. Wasn't good enough. Sorry, Sammy. Maybe the P squad for you. Sorry, Sammy. Ski Pilot, Page. Page is not going to make it. He'll probably be cut today. Phil Adams does not want to expose B. Smitty to the waiver wire. Here's a question. Is B. Smitty eligible for the waiver wire? Let's look at something. Does Brandon Smith have 4 years in the league already? Brandon Smith, no, he does not. So this is his, well, he almost does. This is his 4th year. So, yes, Brandon Smith would have to go through waiver wires, and that makes it a little more tricky. So, in that case, you know, Brandon Smith is somebody, if you really, this is Brandon Smith, the linebacker. Wait a minute. There's another Brandon Smith who's a linebacker. That's not him. Wait a minute. How come there's too many people with similar names? Hang on. B. Smitty. This guy. New York Jets. Well, interestingly, he's 26. He has 1 career game played. This is interesting. I think he probably has to go through waivers. Because even if he was, because I don't think if you're on the practice squad, I don't think that counts toward your pension or anything like that. So, yeah, I think he has to go through waivers. So that means he would be leaning toward the 53 man, whereas if he were a vested veteran, then you could play, you know, roster gymnastics with him, cut him technically, put him on the practice squad, but tell him, don't worry, we're going to call you up, for the first 4 games, and he would go for that. Because he only has 1 game played his whole life. So if you tell him, yeah, we'll call you up 4 times at least, and then we'll see where we're at, he would probably go for that. But I do think it seems like he's got to go through waivers. He's 26 years old, though. I mean, he's getting up there a little bit in terms of vested veteran and waivers and stuff like that. So that's interesting. Jet 41. No, we don't have any. We have 6 players cut. Jet 41, none of them being the Corley man. The players that were cut were as follows: Mario Goodrich, Samuel Jackson, Neil Johnson, Daimir Miller, Fatorma Mulba, and Pokey Wilson. That's who's been cut so far. As of yesterday, and no cuts have happened today, as far as we know anyway. As far as has been reported. So I do anticipate we'll see more cuts today. They got to go through their meetings, and then they got to meet with the players and tell them and say, you did a great job for us, guy, but we're going to let you go. So it takes a little bit of time, but I would anticipate some more today, and then see if we can make any trades, etc. Alan Dodds, not yet, yeah. Ski Pilot, got to keep. Well, we don't got to keep anybody, actually. We don't got to keep Brandon Smith and Skinner. We're not losing Tyler Johnson and Reynolds. No, this is completely wrong, Ski Pilot. Sorry, bud. This is 100% wrong. Tyler Johnson and Reynolds are locks. Now, we may keep one of Brandon Smith, and Skinner, but we're not keeping both, probably. Now, if we do keep both, we're not. That doesn't mean we're losing Tyler Johnson and Reynolds. No. Those guys are pretty much locks. I'll put it this way. It would be a big surprise. Reynolds is a lock. Tyler Johnson is like a 95% lock. It would be a big surprise if we got rid of him. And again, I think this is a case where Ski Pilot is putting way too much emphasis on preseason games, which, I mean, how many times do we have to learn the lesson that preseason means almost nothing? You can learn some things. I think for quarterbacks, it's nice to see where they are processing-wise. You can see some things if people pop off the screen consistently. You can see some things, but for the most part, preseason is absolutely meaningless. If the preseason were valuable, then Chris Streveler would be a Pro Bowl quarterback, but he's in the Canadian Football League. So that tells you. Yeah, practice squad guys can be rated, that's for sure. Well, infrared, it's either get old or the alternative, which is also not good. I'm going to put Sky Pilot, I think, maybe on the tariff system. We got to tariff some of these comments. Where if you want to ask a question, I'll answer it, but only if you pay a tariff of like $2. Some things we got to initiate a tariff on, I think. This is Jets and Jinsfin. Corley seems like he's lost mentally. I don't know, man. I don't know with these wide receivers, you just never know. Some receivers just never get it. I mean, it's not just the Jets. It happens all over the league. Some dudes are highly regarded. They come in and they just they can't play. I don't know what it is. It's the mental aspect. It's the physical aspect. They can't make the leap. I don't know. It happens all over the league. And then you have people in the 4th, 5th round who exceed expectations. So I just think that's why it's a crapshoot, and that's why you need to keep, you need to stockpile draft picks. You just never know. I mean, the Jets were so convicted on Corley, and then they didn't, really use him that much. I mean, to be that convicted about a guy in the draft room, you should have a role for him carved out, and you should have a path and make it easy for him. Now, maybe he just screwed it all up. Maybe he's terrible at learning. Maybe he can't learn. I don't know what the deal is. And you never know. You never know with these wide receivers. Todd says if you have a dominant running game, you don't throw interceptions. Well, that's true. And let's hope we do have a dominant running game. That makes the passing game a lot easier. You know, teams are going to start loading the box against us, and then you got to throw it over their heads. Sounds easy, and sometimes it is, but we'll see if it is for us. Infrared. Mola and Lobby. Yeah, so first person right here who took my comment out of context. So I said it is useful for quarterbacks. And so every time you say something about quarterbacks, you have to give like 7,000 words of context. Otherwise, people take everything you say out of context to fit their own narratives. It's commenting on the internet. So I said in the preseason, it's pretty much garbage, except you can see certain things with quarterbacks. What you can see with quarterbacks and what we saw with Jackson Dart is that he's ready for the next level. There's also levels to everything in the NFL. So in baseball, you have, for example, minor leagues, and the minor leagues are levels. The football doesn't have levels like that. They don't have minor leagues. So they have levels of competition within the league because they don't have minor leagues. In baseball, you climb up the minor leagues. So you beat the A ball, then you go to Double A, then you go to Triple A, and you see how you do. And if you're not good enough for that level, then they drop you back down. You develop, and eventually they hope you go to the next level, and the next level, and the next level. So in football, we don't have minor leagues. So you have a practice squad, but they don't play against anybody, really. And then you have competition within the league, and you have these preseason games. And what you want to see out of a Jackson Dart, for example, is what you saw. If you're a Giant fan, what you wanted to see out of Jackson Dart is exactly what you saw because he's a first-round pick. They like him. They think he's really good. Okay, let's put him in there. How does he do? Well, he did really well. Okay, he dominated that level. Okay, great. Now he's ready for the next level and the next level and the next level. And that's what you can see. And then compare like Jackson Dart to Brady Cook and Adrian Martinez, for example. They're not ready for the next level. Adrian Martinez and Brady Cook are probably practice squad level. And then next year, for example, you're going to see, can they go to the next level? Like one thing I want to see with Brady Cook, I'm hoping they keep Brady Cook and they keep him on the practice squad. And then next year, they sign him to a futures deal, it's called, in the offseason. Then he comes back to the 90-man, and you see progress. And you'll see it in practice, and the beat reporters will be talking about it. And then you see it in the preseason. So hopefully next year, for example, in the preseason, what you see, what you can get out of the preseason is Brady Cook different next year than he was this year, and hopefully better and improved, right? So that's the sort of thing you can get out of preseason. You know, next year, if Brady Cook is doing much better against poor competition of the preseason, which is what it is, then you go, okay, that's a step forward for Brady Cook, and now maybe let's move him up against the twos or the preseason ones, which still isn't the regular competition, but it's a step up in levels. And then if he does well there, then maybe you go, okay, we feel comfortable with Brady Cook as a backup or a quarterback 3. So that's the sort of thing you want to see. Now, when it comes to Jackson Dart, it looks like he's at that point now. He did well, and so that's what you want. Now, that does not mean he's going to be able to do well in the regular season if they put him in there, for example, which they're probably not. They're sitting him on the bench, which I think is the right thing to do. Let him wait. What's the problem? He can wait. It's not a problem. And then, you know, we'll see what Dable and Shane want to do with their roster, but that was probably the plan all along. We'll see where the kid is, and this way there's no pressure on him. He's not projected to be the starter. We're not putting it all on him. We're not asking him to save the franchise and putting that pressure on him, because who can perform in that pressure? Look what happens to so many quarterbacks, Zach Wilson included, Sam Darnold, etc. So that's probably the that's probably a good plan, it seems to me. And Jackson Dart did exactly what you wanted him to do. And so if you're a Giant fan, you should go, all right, encouraging, great. This is looking bright for the future. Right? That's all it means. Doesn't mean he's going to the Hall of Fame. It doesn't mean he's going to be a Pro Bowler. Doesn't mean he's going to be all pro. Doesn't mean much, except he then hit that level. Okay, now we move him up to the next level. And that's the way it should be. I think this idea, I mean, now, unless you, like, you could say, well, what about C.J. Stroud and what about Jaden Daniels? And they went right in their rookie year and they lit it up. Well, I mean, I guess if you have a good plan for them, I mean, it just depends on the player. I guess some can do it better than others, but, you know, I think Cliff Kingsbury, for example, had a very good plan for Jaden Daniels, how they were going to use him, how they were going to maximize his skill set and not ask him to do things that maybe would be hard for a rookie to do, but make him do things that are easy for him to do because of his skill set. For example, he runs a lot. He runs a lot of RPOs, runs a lot of screen. They throw a lot of screens. He's very fast, so he can gain a lot of yards on the ground. So let's major in the things he can do. All right. So there's a lot of different approaches. I like what the Giants are doing, and I like what Jackson Dart did. It's very good. Okay, perfect. Back foot hit, ball comes out. That's what you want to see. And what you don't want to see is what Shedeur Sanders was doing yesterday, running backwards. You know, we got enough of that with Zach Wilson and all this kind of thing. And back foot was hitting and ball was not coming out. In the NFL, back foot hits, balls got to come out pretty much. Maybe one hitch and that's it. So you get to see examples of different players, and everybody, you know, develops at different paces. Doesn't mean Jackson Dart's going to the Hall of Fame. Doesn't mean Shedeur Sanders is going to stink. It doesn't mean, you know, people develop at different paces and times, but you get to see kind of examples of the good and the bad, what you want, what you don't want, right? It's kind of interesting. So that's the long-winded answer about quarterbacks. This is why I generally avoid talking about quarterbacks. If you start, you got to give 7 million words of context. Otherwise, you know, you get people with their comments that are out of context. Ski below. Ruckert is currently on the team, yes. Oh, I forgot. Sky Pilot is on the tariff list. Sky Pilot, you're on the tariff list. So $2 or more for Sky Pilot's questions. Phil Adams, Elijah Moore, good example of ruining physical. Yeah. What happened with Elijah Moore? He still stinks. They're saying he's not even going to make the Buffalo Bills. So I guess it's a mental thing with him. I don't know. The guy's a great route runner. He's fast. I don't know. So with these wide receivers, you just got to go, I don't know. There's no reason why Elijah Moore hasn't been better than he is. There's no reason. I don't get it. Now they're saying he may not even make the Bills. He may not even make their team. He's going to get cut. That's amazing. Todd says, hit the like button. Yeah, hit the like button. Jet 41. Cook doesn't seem like, oh no, he's got a strong enough arm. He does. Now, does he have a rifle arm? No, he's not John Elway. He's got a strong enough arm. But he's the type of quarterback who has to play on time and in rhythm, though. So when you don't have like an Anthony Richardson type arm or a Josh Allen, you know, like a bazooka, you got to play on time. And that's most of the quarterbacks in the league, by the way. And so therefore it's a big brain game for him. And so, you know, we'll see hopefully what happens is we'll see how he progresses next year. Infrared P Squad players. Yeah. Well, so what? They that's a pretty small salary for their talents. I mean, they're, you know, 69, they're 16 players who are just a little bit not good enough to make the 53 man, which means they're some of the best football players in the world, and football is an extremely popular sport that people pay a lot of money to watch and go to and merchandise. And So I don't care about their salaries. They should make more. Be honest with you. A lot of receivers are head cases. Yeah, that's true. Well, there are very few wide receivers with 1,500-yard seasons. Now let's take a look at the roster, shall we? Let's take a look at the roster. So, as far as we know, this is really the current state of the roster with the cuts from yesterday included. So, as you can see, we have some easy cuts like Tyler Harrell will be cut, Toafili will be cut. You know, some of these offensive linemen here will definitely be cut. I think one of the things everybody's saying Chooks Okorafor will make it. I hope he does not. I do not want a quitter on my team. But pretty much all the prognosticators are prognosticating that Chooks will make the team. I was hopeful someone would beat him out, but it doesn't seem like any of these people here really stood out. Laval, you saw getting beat in some of these preseason games against the bums, so that's not good news. Maybe some of these others, I mean, I don't even remember Vigan being in there, but you got to like really study the tape to get to those guys. So I don't know. Problem is, do you really want to take Carter Warren? He hasn't even stood out. I think Max Mitchell's going to get in there because he plays tackle and guard. And then Xavier Newman as a guard center. And then Josh Myers, that's 8. Maybe we just take 8, but that's risky. You really kind of want 9. And that's where it's like, okay, for the 9th guy, maybe it is Chooks. I mean, he does have a lot of experience, blah, blah. So maybe it's just because none of these guys really stepped up. Maybe we could pick up somebody on waivers, so forth and so on. Another wild card is Isaiah Davis. He has that injury. We don't know how serious that is. We currently don't know how serious the injury to Byron Cowart is either. So here's the defense right now. And it's looking a lot better with Phillips and Briggs on the team. I am hopeful that the 5th defensive tackle will be Leonard Taylor, which would mean Nadi gets cut and Tufele. Now, everybody's remembering Tufele because of the one Linsanity game against the Packers. But he has not been good as a pro his whole life. So I think basically it's Tufele versus Leonard Taylor for the last spot there. I personally would rather go with Taylor. We do have a pretty big need at defensive end. It's looking like Eric Watts is a second stringer, at least at the moment, unless we can pick somebody up, sign somebody, waivers, a trade, etc. So that's how that's looking. And, people like Boog Smith out here and Jackson Sermon and Tanner McAllister and Kingsley Jonathan, these are practice squad probably targets. Tyler Barron pretty much has to make the team because we took him in the 5th round for some reason. The interesting thing is that they have an interesting decision to make with Jordan Clark. They've been using Jordan Clark as the backup nickel in the preseason when Michael Carter comes out of the game. They're basically using Jordan Clark almost exclusively as a nickel. So if they don't keep Jordan Clark, then their backup nickel is Isaiah Oliver, which is not a problem. And their backup big nickel would probably be Malachi Moore. Now, it depends what they want to do with Malachi Moore in terms of starting. Do they want Tiny Tony Adams starting, or do they want Malachi Moore starting? If you start Moore, you really don't have a big nickel. You could bring in a third safety, but Tony Adams is small. Isaiah Oliver's small. I don't think they've been using AZ Thomas as a nickel, as far as I know, as far as I've heard. As far as I know, he's just been used on the boundary so far. So, that this is kind of why Isaiah Oliver's spot on the roster is solidified, because he backs up so many spots. But the nickel cornerback is a very important spot. I bet you they would like to have Jordan Clark probably on the practice squad and call him up for certain situations, certain games. That's probably what they would like to do. Has he done enough that somebody would claim him? I don't think so. I mean, you never know. Everybody's watching the tape and everything, but has Jordan Clark really popped out on the tape where you'd go, wow, we got to claim him? I don't think so. I think he's been quietly being groomed as like a backup nickel. But do you keep that on the 53-man? Do you try to stash it on the practice squad? Well, but if they don't keep him, then Isaiah Oliver becomes a very, very important player on the team as far as backing up multiple positions. And so I do think it'll be interesting to see whether it's Tiny Tony or Malachi, Splashy Malachi Moore starting for this defense. That's a battle that we still don't know the answer to that one, and none of the beat writers are talking about it. So the other thing is, like, Jamin Davis as the linebacker 3. Is it him or is it Selly? They were both playing late into the game on the third game, or even Barnes, maybe. It's hard to tell who's the favorite here. It's either Jamin Davis. It's probably not Kiko. It's either Jamin Davis, McCrary Ball, or Barnes. I don't know which way they're leaning. And the beat writers don't know either, at least according to what they've written about. So if I had to guess, I'd say Jamin, but it could be Selly also. I don't know. But that linebacker 3 spot is going to be very, very important for us if we're going to be in base way more than we're used to seeing under Salah Ulbrich. Then the third linebacker is going to be on the field more. And that should help in run against the run. It should help in terms of covering tight ends, in theory. In theory, anyways. So we'll have to see how that plays out. Although what I did notice in doing the drive charts for all the preseason games, when the opposing offense is in any kind of heavy, 12, 21, nobody really went to 13, 12 or 21, we're in base 100% of the time. Like, there's no deviation. That's a normal thing, but with Salah and Ulbrich, they would be in nickel sometimes against heavy personnel, like a higher percentage than you would think, because they just trusted Michael Carter so much. And I think they over-relied on him, to be honest. He's really good, but if you're asking him to be a linebacker type, make those linebacker type of plays, I think that's not bueno. He's too small. He can almost do it, and that's that's a plus for him as a player, that he's so versatile. But at the same time, you kind of want a linebacker to make linebacker plays, I think. And so I do think that this coaching staff is, they're doing things that kind of make sense like that. Like, there really is no reason, I think, to be a nickel against 12 personnel. There just really isn't. I mean, unless you're facing like, okay, a guy like, I'll give you 2 examples. A guy like Kyle Pitts, he's not really a tight end. Let's be honest. A guy like Mike Gesicki, okay, he's not really a tight end. Even a guy like a Travis Kelce, really. These are wide receivers in tight end bodies, really. And so when you're playing against those type of people, all right, you might want Michael Carter to cover those dudes, even though those guys are taller, and Michael isn't that tall, but still he can run with them and so forth like that. For the most part. But other than that, when the other opposing team's in 12, we should be in base. I agree with this. I agree with Wilkes and Aaron Glenn when they're talking about that stuff and they're doing that stuff. So that's a good sign. Now the other thing we'll have to see with the addition of Harrison Phillips, who has a lot of experience at all kinds of techniques in the interior defensive line. Does this allow us to play any zero tech? Now, we have not played very much zero tech at all under the Saleh Ulbrich era, so we're not used to seeing it, at least these past few years here. So even in a 4-down front, you can still play zero tech. It's unusual. It's a little strange, a little rare, I guess I should say. But it can be done, and there are reasons to do so, such as a tight formation and other things. So does that acquisition allow Wilkes and Glenn to have more schematic fluidity, as we call it, which I think is also a plus. In today's game, you need to have schematic fluidity. You cannot run the same crap over and over again. Teams are too smart these days. They have instant access to film. They know what you're doing in 2 seconds, so you have to change it up. You have to give them unscouted looks. You have to do different things. You have to confuse them. You have to do that in the modern NFL, in my opinion. I do not think in the modern NFL that you can just run the same crap over and over again like the old days, and people could never figure it out because they just didn't have access to information. And even if they did have the information, they hadn't practiced against, all of this because, again, they didn't have instant access to info. So they only practiced against certain things. So if you did something unusual that they hadn't practiced against, you could run it the whole damn game and they would never, be able to figure it out, pretty much. So those are the old days. Now, they're talking about Microsoft is going to be providing AI on the sidelines. I don't know what that's going to look like, but it's a changing world. And to me, I think you need to be schematically fluid. That's what I think. It's really thunderstorming outside. I don't know if you guys can hear that. Florida thunderstorms have come early today. So if we cut out, you know why. Phil Adams says, I'll take LT3. I'll take LT3. Yeah. There's just more upside there. We're talking about defensive tackle 5, which is a lot different than talking about defensive tackle 2, right? That's what those trades really did. It pushed everybody back to where they should be. Leonard Taylor's a perfect defensive tackle 5 because that means in most games he's not even going to be active. And you're just keeping him because he has shown flashes. When these guys come in and they're prospects and they never show you anything, no flashes, like, for example, Tyler Barron hasn't shown any flashes of anything at all. That means he's probably not going to develop. Probably not. Well, you never know. You never know. But Leonard Taylor has shown you some things. He has flashed at times, including in real games. And so that's a guy you want to keep because he's shown you he could do some things. Doesn't guarantee he will develop, but Jay Tufele really just had a Linsanity game against the Packers in the preseason, and that was it. The whole time he was on the Bengals, he was not good. Not good. I watched the tape. He gets blown off the line of scrimmage. And same thing for Derek Nottie in the current day. So Derek Nottie, surprisingly, so these two are kind of the same in that, well, first of all, I told you when we signed them, when you sign $1 million guy, that means the entire market of the NFL, 31 other teams, didn't want to offer them anything more than that. So that tells you something. And then second, if you watch the tape, these two have the same problem. They get blown off the line of scrimmage. Now, Nottie used to be a stout run stuffer early in his career. That's what people are probably remembering with him. But the last few years, he has been a totally different player. And whatever power he had in his body is kind of gone, seems like. And then Jay Tufele was never good. So when he came in here and started talking about I can't wait to play in this system. I've never played in this system before. The Bengals run the same system we do, or very similar. So I don't even know what he's talking about. Because for defensive linemen, it's mostly the thing you got to keep in mind is, are they one gapping or two gapping? There's other things you do with them, but for the most part, the first thing you ask is, are we one gapping or two gapping? And the Bengals were one gapping and we're one gapping. And so now maybe it's possible that due to schematic fluidity, maybe there are times when we're two gapping. That'd be interesting. Very interesting. But as far as we know, typically a four down lineman alignment will typically be a one gapping defense, and a 3 down lineman, a 3-4 defense will typically be a two gapping defense, generally speaking. Of course, you play all kinds of games and be fluid with your scheme, which is what we want, but we'll see. But that's why I think those trades were so good. It's not that Phillips and Briggs are, amazing players who are going to, blow everyone away and go to the All-Pro ranks. It's just that they were so much better than what we had, and then that bounces people back to their correct level on the team. And we need to do the same at edge. Right now, edge is, Michael Clemens is our defensive end 3. That's, and then Eric Watts says 4. That's not good. You need 4 of those guys. You need 4 of them, and we got like 2. So we need at least 1 more, in my opinion. So we'll have to see. Yeah, infrared schematic fluidity. That's going to be something I'm going to be talking about it all year long, especially if it comes to fruition, that's what Wilkes and Glenn are up to. And especially if it's working. it'd be phenomenal if we're just getting like results that exceed expectations. And then people are like, how is this possible? The roster's not great. But then it would be about this schematic fluidity, where it's like, okay, let's look at the tape and see what they did here and here and here and explaining it. And if that's the case, man, that'll be a lot of fun. That would be a lot of fun. Like, look at this smart thing that Wilkes did. Look at this smart thing that Glenn and Wilkes were up to. And then you have all the people on Twitter X, saying, wow, look at this thing, and showing, you got a Baldy breakdown, and this sort of thing. Man, and that's fun. As opposed to, seeing a Baldy breakdown, it's a breakdown of our opponent going, look how they clowned the Jets. Well, we don't want that. We want the Baldy breakdown where he's going, wow, look at how Steve Wilkes is using his defensive line and doing this. Look at this alignment. Look at this. That's what you want. And now it's possible because Phillips is a kind of a chess piece. Not in the traditional sense that we think of defensive chess pieces, but as far as defensive linemen go, he can play 0 tech, he can play 1 tech, he can play 3 tech, he can play 5 tech if you want him to. He's got experience all over the line and a wealth of it, and he's just a big, huge run stuffer, strong dude. So that's great. And then Briggs. If Briggs had arms 3 inches longer, he would be an all-pro, but he doesn't. So, but this dude, very strong also. Once he gets his hands on you, he's very strong. His only problem is his arm length doesn't allow him to get into the chest of the offensive lineman as much as he would want to. So, but still, even with that, he's better than what we had. So we'll have to see what goes on with these injuries as well. Byron Cowart is a big question mark. If he goes on IR, then obviously Taylor's going to make it, and probably Tufele also. So we'll have to see. Infrared says, yeah, but Infrared, you know who else does special developmental workouts? Every player in the NFL. Pretty much every player in the NFL does their off-season. They don't really take any time off anymore. For the most part. Now I did, now he was posting stuff on his social media and I saw it. And I like that the stuff he was doing. He was looking good. But everybody does that. Elijah Moore went to route running schools and all this stuff, and he would post these crazy videos of him running these crazy routes. And it'd be like, wow, Elijah Moore's going to be amazing. Well, he wasn't amazing. So, I mean, yeah, people these days, these athletes are working out. The money is such that they get paid and then they stay in condition. This isn't the old days, Infrared. These dudes are working out all year round. They take maybe 2, 3, maybe 4 weeks off when the season ends, heal up a little bit, get the body healed up where they do light workouts, and then they go heavy. They're in somebody's academy. The offensive linemen are with what's his name, Duke Manyweather, or they're in some other school. The quarterbacks, every quarterback has their own quarterback coach. Justin Fields, for example, works with Quincy Avery, one of the top ones. And whether it's Jordan Palmer or this one or that one, all the quarterbacks go to their personal quarterback gurus in the offseason to work on something. And all the running backs go to running back school. And then they all do their own. They're not sitting around eating Cheetos, Infrared. They're not snacking on nachos and sitting around. All right? PC salami. All the way from Asia. We got the Frankie fam from Asia. Those two really solidify. Yes. Yes, sir. Well, they're an upgrade. And if you remember, PC, I've been screaming about this since April. Since March, really. When we started signing at people and not signing other people, I have been telling you guys, we need help, we need help, we need help. Where's the help? Free agents, I was screaming about that. Then the draft, I was very disappointed about that. There were so many defensive tackles in the draft, and we took none of them. And I couldn't understand why. So it took a little while, but they finally, bulked out where we need to. Now, we'll see what they do on edge. Hopefully, if we basically get one edge player, and if we could find a blocking tight end, if we find a blocking tight end, that's the way Ruckert could find himself off the roster. And obviously we would try to put him back on the practice squad. But those are really the places. Maybe a wide receiver, but they're saying Tim Patrick could break loose out of Detroit, maybe something like that. But really, we just need if we sign Zadarius Smith, for example, I keep using him as an example. He's still out there. You could have him for just money. I don't know what he's waiting for. Then the defense is looking a lot better just for one signing. The defense is looking pretty solid now, much more solid anyways. Let's look at this. Look at this, the first string. Now, we got problems depth-wise, but everybody does. A lot of teams have problems depth-wise. But the first string defense, this looks pretty good. Other than Tiny Tony, okay, we got all right. And Cisco, we got a little problem at the safeties, okay. But assuming Ahmad returns to his previous form, this is a pretty good defense all around. And you got to hope that Brandon Stevens is what the Jets think he is. So when you give a guy $12 million, over 36 really over 3 years, you're saying what he is, which means you believe in that player very strongly because you're giving him 12. You don't just give people $12 million for nothing. So they believe in Brandon Stevens, and you saw him make a bunch of plays in camp. You saw him make some plays in the preseason. Okay, pretty good. Now let's see it in the real regular season. If he's the player they think he is, this is a pretty solid defense. You have 2 previous All-Pros on it, Quincy, and 3, and Ahmad. 3 All-Pros, 3 former All-Pros. Then you got a Pro Bowler here, and that's it, and a Pro Bowler. So 4 Pro Bowlers and 3 All-Pros. That's not bad. And then you have a guy who's had double-digit sacks, and Sherwood, who's up and coming. I'm sure he's going to make a Pro Bowl at some time. This is that's a pretty good first-string defense. And if you added Zadarius Smith right here, then your second-string front looks pretty good. the linebackers, these two linebackers stay on the field 100% of the time. So you got to worry about these guys for injury. These four here are important because they are going to rotate in. So the best, first string defensive linemen play about 60, 65%. There's only one Max Crosby in the league who plays a crazy percent as a defensive lineman. Maybe there's another who does so. But for the most part, these guys are going to play 60, 65%. So therefore, these guys are very important. However, just not taking into account injuries. There's always injuries, so you want depth for that. But let's assume everybody's healthy for the sake of this conversation. Quincy and Jamian stay on the field 100% of the time. They never come off. Same thing with your defensive backfield with these four. Let's say it's these four. And then the nickel, Carter plays a lot, and then your third linebacker plays a lot. These two switch off, Carter and let's say it's Davis. So really, if you think about it, if we upgraded here some way, trade, waiver claim, sign Za'Darius or Jadeveon Clowney or somebody, you've upgraded. I mean, that's a pretty solid defense. Really is, to be honest, and looks a lot better with just those two trades. It looks a lot better than what we had before those trades, which was worrying the hell out of me. Teams are going to have a much harder, hopefully, time running it up the middle now. So my whole thing about duo up the middle, A gap, B gap, that's how they're going to attack us. A lot harder when you have somebody like Harrison Phillips next to Quinnen Williams. Doesn't mean it's impossible, but it's a lot harder for teams to do it. So, and then if you try to run outside, we got Jermaine Johnson on the edge, and then so they're probably going to run at Will McDonald. That's that's what that means. And then can Will McDonald, with his newfound weight, can he improve against the run and holding that edge? And if he can, well, where are you going to run the ball? Then if you don't run the ball, okay, then Harrison, and then it's third and long. Harrison Phillips comes out. Byron Cowart comes in, or to LT3. And we bring our NASCAR package, which Johnson, McDonald, and Quinnen can stay. And now we're going to pin our ears back and try to sack your quarterback. And so this defense can work. And if we have one more upgrade here, it could really be nice. Now, again, some of the depth is not great, but that's typical on teams today. When you have to pay people and you don't do an amazing job drafting, it's hard to have the kind of depth that you would ideally want to have. And so hopefully moving forward, Muji and AG do a better job of drafting guys who can at least come in and play a role and be a backup. Infrared says, great points, brother. All right, Infrared. Phil Adams says, forward planning. Will you handle solo watch party? Oh. Well, let's think about it. I guess so. I mean, we're going to do some college games. Like we're going to do this Saturday, by the way, we're going to watch Ohio State and Texas. Like that's a great game to watch. There's going to be a lot of NFL talent on that field, including Arch Manning, and Ohio State has a quarterback named Julian Sayin. Like just saying. His name is Julian Sayin. And I think he's a redshirt freshman or a true freshman or something. But it's Ohio State. So, I mean, they have some of the best receivers, as always. They have Jeremiah Smith. They have all these people. So we're gonna be watching some college ball. So I guess I'll do a live stream for the Steelers game. Why not? Yeah, why not? Of course, I'll be doing my drive charts. So you guys are going to get hit with data about what's actually happening on the field, which some of you may like and some of you may not like. Well, put in the chat if you want to watch a Frankie solo live stream for the Jets Steelers September, what is it, September 7th? Whatever, the first game. Put in the chat if you would actually watch that. Put it in the chat. Let me know if there's demand. We need to know if there's consumer demand for such a product, Phil Adams. You see, old Frankie from Flatbush is actually a product. I'm actually a product, Phil Adams. And by you guys showing up in the chat room, that you're consuming the product, you see. And so we need to know if there's consumer demand. And so how do companies determine if there's consumer demand for a potential product that they might develop? This is a business question. Put on the business hat. Put on the MBA hat, Frankie. Okay. Well, sometimes they do surveys. Sometimes they look at competition. You know, who else is putting out a product similar to ours? Of course, there is no product similar to Frankie, let's be honest. I mean, there's a lot of Jet content creators, but do they do what Frankie does? Come on. Come on. I mean, you even saw on Jets X Factor this week, Michael Nania ripping me off. I mean, does anybody do what I do? Well, they do what I do after I do it because then they steal it and put it into Jets X Factor columns. But that's okay. That's all right, Michael. That's okay. The man looks like a drowning ferret. Let's give him a little breathing room, shall we? You can't blame the man. But original content, no. So Infrared says, I will watch it. All right, we will have Infrared. We'll have Phil Adams. We'll have Chris Avern. Yeah, Batman and Robin. Yeah, right. Yeah, Phil Adams reminds, hit the like button. I mean, if you can't even hit the like button, maybe there's no consumer demand for a Frankie live stream. I can't help it if people have other plans. Now, a lot of the people who would be watching a live stream maybe will be at that game, or maybe they plan to watch somebody else's live stream. There's a lot of content creators out there. Very few like old Frankie, though. Aaron Daniels, good morning. Well, there's lots of potential targets. I'll tell you my favorite. We did not really talk about this. We're looking at the roster right here, Aaron. So as you can see, a guy that could shake free that I would have my eye on. It's not a sexy pick, but Javon Baker out of UCF. If you remember, when he came out and got drafted by the Patriots, that was someone the Jets had their eye on. And he got picked a few slots before us. Went to the Patriots, had a rookie season where he didn't really get a chance to do much. He's been impressing in camp, but the Patriots have suddenly a lot of wide receivers now because Stephon Diggs is coming back quicker than anybody thought. They have Butte, they have Pop Douglas, they have the kid they drafted, Kyle Williams. They have Kendrick Bourne. They have a few of these guys kicking around, and it just may be a roster crunch for Javon Baker. That's a guy waiver claim that we could make. It's not a guy that most people are familiar with, so it's not going to get, people like to get massive hard-ons for wide receivers for some reason, I think, because of fantasy football. But people like to get gigantic hard-ons for wide receivers. Very strange to me. But but that's not going to excite people. That's probably not going to excite you, Aaron. But that's the type of guy who A, could shake free, B, wouldn't cost us anything, which is beautiful. We need to be stockpiling our picks as much as we can. And C, would be an improvement over some of these guys that we have. Now, we probably need to trade out, we probably need to trade Lazard, for example. Somebody might want Alan Lazard, believe it or not, to clear out a spot because somebody has to return punts. For example, Rich Cimini put out a 53-man roster projection yesterday where he had no punt returners on the team. So some of these people are just so brain dead that it's unbelievable, including Dick Chimney. I mean, the man needs to retire. I mean, Alzheimer's might start setting in for old Chimney. Guys have been covering the Jets for 30 fucking years. It's like, give somebody else a chance, dude. Like, you're not exactly great at it, and you're not exactly enthusiastic about it. He does not, you could tell, you could just see on his face, like he looks like a fucking, like a mashed potato or something. And it's not like he's just thrilled to be covering the Jets. It's like, oh, let me punch the clock in. Got this job to do. Dude, retire already. It's been 30 years. I'm sure you could get a nice retirement with a pension and everything and be totally fine. Go teach your class at Syracuse, which I don't even know how he has a class at Syracuse. I mean, it's basically 10 minutes. You sit down and he says, okay, here's what you guys need to know. Once you get a job at some place like ESPN, all of the agents will then have your phone number. Okay? And then when they want to break news, they will text you information. Okay? And then you go and put it on X. Exactly verbatim. You can't change anything. Exactly what the agents tell you to put on, you put on. Okay. That's it. Any questions? That's the job. That's the class. But I guess, hey, you could teach a class over at Syracuse and just retire and let somebody who actually wants to do this job do it. There has to be some young buck out there who would love to cover the Jets for ESPN and do an enthusiastic and actually, like a better job of it than Dick Chimney. The man put out a 53-man roster with no punt returners. The fuck are you doing? I mean, Jesus Christ, man. Anyways, so we got off track there, Aaron Daniels. But I would look at Javon Baker. There's going to be people. I would try to make a waiver claim. I would not try to make a trade. There's so many wide receivers that could be on waivers, and just see what you can get for free. If it's for free, it's for me. Dodester will be at the game. See, Alan Dodds won't even be able to watch a live stream. He's going to be at the game going Jets, 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 Jets. How many times is there a Jets chance at the game, Dodester? 72 times? Do you ever get tired of saying Jets, 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 Jets? Maybe we should have like different kinds of chants. Does it have to be the same one every time? We do. Can we get something else? Can we? we're spelling the name of the team. We're just spelling it out. Like, that's okay. All right. Todd says he'll look forward to watch. So we got like 3 people. Consumer demand is a little light. FSPN watch party is a must. Phil Adams excited about it. Infrared, Frankie on TV, fire. All right. Well, B-Trav is here. He says, I always watch Frankie. All right. So we got 4 or 5 of you out there. Maybe there's some demand for this. I hit the like button. FSPN is great. The Frankie Sports Programming Network. Hit the like button if you're into FSPN, because FESPN. Now, ESPN is going to be a monster. I don't know what's going to happen going forward. I have a feeling some of these things that we were having a problem with on the 3rd preseason game, trying to find out where it is, and even though I have YouTube TV and I have NFL Plus and I have everything, I still had to use cracked streams and whatever. So stupid. I think going forward next year, there could be even more problems where you pretty much have to get ESPN streaming app or whatever the hell it's called, the new one. And so, ESPN is like a Leviathan. You can't beat it. It's like a Goliath, and I'm like David with a bow. You know what I mean? With my little slingshot, trying to take on ESPN with FSPN. But and it's like a 20-foot tall Goliath, and I'm little David with my slingshot, and a rock. Dode says, I would be a terrible live game reporter. All right. Well, good to know. Hey, Jet 41 says, I liked Baker in the draft. All right, Jet 41. That's a guy we have a chance at. Now, I don't know what the Patriots are going to do. Maybe they make some trades. Maybe there's some injuries there, and he sneaks on the roster. I do know that he has played well in this offseason and the preseason and everything and all the practices and all. So he might make their team. I don't know, but he might not. Only so many they can take. Dodester says, I'll be with Green Bean, Ryan, and Matt. All right. What about Chaos? Isn't Chaos going to be there also? What, are you just gonna turn your back on Chaos? The man eats hot sauce for you, Dodes. Don't you understand how much hot sauce he had to eat to make him have cataracts? I mean, that's a lot of hot sauce. It takes a lot of hot sauce to give a man cataracts. And then he had to get surgery to fix it. And you're just going to turn your back on him, Dodester? I mean, come on, man. The man ate so much hot sauce for your entertainment. Jeez. Beat Trav. Aaron Daniel says, Connor Long. What does that mean? The atomic clock. Some of these YouTubers have become as insufferable as the beat. Oh, name names. Dodester with a super chat. Now, just so you know, Dodester, it doesn't tell me. I'm on Restream now. I'm probably going to go back to StreamYard, but Restream doesn't tell me when there's a super chat. Otherwise, I would have got to this faster. So sorry about that. I am in for. Yeah, well, that's what we need. We needed more investment so that we can take on the Goliath. I'm like David with a slingshot, with a rock, trying to shoot it at this Goliath called ESPN. And the NFL just invested in ESPN, like where they're getting equity out of ESPN, 10%. I mean, it's crazy. So how that's all going to play out, I don't know. There's also court cases. Like, we should have an ability to do an a la carte where if I want to buy a game, I could just buy one game. You know, this is what the cost for the game is. I want to watch this game. Okay, it costs $2.99. Okay, good. Or, you know, I want to buy all the Jet games. And that's it. That's all I want, let's say. Now, I want all the games, but let's say I just wanted all the Jet games. All right, that'll cost you, you know, $150 for the season. Okay, you know, or whatever the price is. That's the way they should do it. Instead, you got to subscribe to the service, and then you can get this game and also everything else on the service. But I don't want anything else on the service. I don't want anything else on Paramount Plus. I don't want anything else on Hulu. I don't want anything else anywhere. I already have Amazon, whatever it's called, Prime. I don't need 10,000 streaming services, really. I just want some football. And so, yeah, the more people who invest their time and money, money counts, in the Frankie from Flatbush product, the better the product will become. Paisan says, trade for Hendrickson. Well, the problem with trading for Hendrickson is then you got to give him $35-40 million. We don't have that kind of money. So Dodester says, let's see, there are Jets chance in every kickoff, touchdown, field goal, turnover. Last season against the Broncos, we had 3 field goals, so probably 10 chants. That's a lot of chanting. I don't know. Somebody needs to come up with like a new chant so that there could be an alternate chant. Like you have the Jets chant, but then let's have some other ones. You know? But it would take someone very creative to come up with a new Jets chant. To complement the old, you're never going to get rid of JETS, Jets. I mean, that would be crazy to suggest to get rid of that. I mean, spelling out the name of the team is just, you know, hey, how can you do better than that? I don't know, but somebody creative would have to come up with a new chant. And I don't know what that would be. Chaos will be there too. A lot of people think he's my brother. Well, maybe he is your brother. Are you suggesting he really is your brother? Is this one of those things where you say, a lot of people are saying, and you don't say who the a lot of people are. A lot of people are saying that people should give Frankie like hundreds and hundreds of dollars in the super chats. A lot of people are saying that. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying a lot of people are saying we should give Frankie a lot of money in the super chats. All right, so let's check the news. Let's see if there's any late breaking news. News you can use. I got some notifications. Jet beat riders. No, absolutely nothing coming out of these jet beat riders. So doesn't seem like there's any news about the roster right now. Maybe by tonight we'll find out something or other. Jets are just posting highlight videos. What we need to know is who's making this team and who's not making this team. So it doesn't seem like anybody's. Well, here's breaking news. Interesting. The Minnesota Vikings are signing quarterback Carson Wentz. Per me and Tom Pelissero, after a successful workout over the weekend, a new backup for J.J. McCarthy. So what does this say about the Vikings? Well, you could say, it doesn't, they didn't feel good about their backups. They had Nick Mullins and I don't know who they had. Brosmer, they picked in the draft or got as a UDFA, the kid out of Minnesota. So now they go and get Carson Wentz very late in the process. So they must not have liked all that they saw from these backups. But does it say are they worried about JJ? Are they a little worried about JJ McCarthy? Some might say. I don't think so. Oh, they had Sam Howell. The other part, Carson Wentz. Oh, there's a trade. Well, this is interesting. So there's more to the story. The Vikings are also trading Sam Howell to the Eagles. Howell joins Tanner McKee in backing up Jalen Hurts. So I guess that doesn't say much for old Kyle McCord. Well, that's interesting. So Sam Howell, they basically had Sam Howell and Nick Mullins and Brosmer. Those were the backups, and they didn't. I guess they just didn't like Howell, so they picked up Wentz for free, basically just for money. And they said, "All right, let's trade Howell, get him out of here." Vikings have traded. Minnesota receives a fifth. So they basically did a pick swap they did a 5th and 6th pick swap for next year, and then they picked up a 7th rounder. So they basically traded Sam Howell for very little, got a little bit of draft capital, and they got rid of him. Man, Sam Howell must really stink. I mean, if Kevin O'Connell says get out of here, I mean, come on. So that's very interesting. I guess they just didn't feel comfortable with Howell. Why the Eagles needed Sam Howell, I don't know. Tanner McKee is a pretty solid backup, it seems. I guess they're not happy with, what's his name, McCord, that we saw the other night. He did not look especially good. All right, so some trades have begun to happen. Now, a lot of people said from the Minnesota Vikings side, when they traded Phillips to us, like, what? They were not happy. What's going on here? And they said, well, must be a prelude to something else happening. And they need very much, they're very desperate for wide receivers, for example. There's another team desperate for wide receivers because of all the injuries and suspensions and stuff. So, but I don't think this is a big move. This is kind of a minor move. But I wonder if it says does it say anything about JJ? Are they a little nervous about JJ? Probably not, but maybe. Maybe. You never know. Okay, now here's all the stuff. Bears are releasing former Packers wide receiver Samori Toure. Not for us. Nope. Cowboys running back Jadon Blue suffered a low ankle sprain in Friday's preseason finale per source. Rookie is hopeful to be ready week 1. And the Cowboys have running back depth problems. There's a team where... Okay, so Mike Tannenbaum makes a good point. Looks like quarterback number 2, Tanner McKee, will miss some regular season time with his finger injury. So therefore, Philly needed another someone else, as a backup. So they went and got Sam Howell. So that kind of explains that. From the Philly side, Adam Schefter reports, by adding an extra pick via trade this morning, the Vikings now have added ammunition to go trade for a wide receiver. They have inquired on former Vikings wide receiver Adam Thielen, but Carolina has been reluctant to deal the respected and productive veteran. Yeah, if I were Carolina, I would not trade Adam Thielen. You're trying to develop Bryce Young. That's the most important thing going on in Carolina. Why trade a reliable receiver? Because who cares about anything else other than Bryce Young developing? And if Adam Thielen helps you develop Bryce Young, why would you trade him? And last year he was surprisingly good, even if he's just kind of there as a safety blanket, a possession receiver type. I would not get rid of Adam Thielen if I was Carolina under any circumstances. This is my Bryce Young development plan, in addition to everything else we have going on there. But he's part of the Bryce Young development plan. Why would you trade him? What are you going to get that's going to make it worthwhile? We need to develop Bryce Young. He has to develop. If you're Carolina's, from Carolina's point of view. But if I'm the Vikings, hey, listen, well, let's call up our old friends at the Vikings. We already made one trade. We do have a man by the name of Alan Lazard. Perhaps you'd be interested in. Remember when he used to play in your division and used to slice you up when he had Aaron Rodgers on the Packers? Well, now you could have him on your team. Can you imagine anything better than the Vikings giving up a 4th-round pick for Alan Lazard? I mean, that's all it takes, Mr. Minnesota. I mean, Alan Lazard, he's tall, he's big, he can block, he can catch a pass sometimes. I mean, what do you need a 4th-round pick for? You don't need it. That'd be nice. That would be a nice little trade, and then we clear up a little roster spot, pick up a Javon Baker on our side, and hey, now we're cooking with gas. So finger injury to Tanner McKee makes Sam Howell the replacement for the backup situation in Eagles land. Hopefully that doesn't come into play. Of course, they want Jalen Hurts to play 17 games and do his tush push all day long. He wants to be pushing in the tushin. And so but I wonder, and then they just went and signed Carson Wentz all of a sudden after all of camp and all of the preseason. Now they go and get Wentz. So they did all of their evaluation of all these guys, and they said, uh-oh. I think the Vikings did an uh-oh. Now, is it uh-oh about JJ? Speculation. Don't know. Probably not, but you never. Or is it just, wow, Sam Howell stinks and Nick Mullins stinks and Brosmer stinks, and all these people stink. So we need somebody to just be a backup here. So Carson Wentz it is. Carson Wentz, still only 32 years old, by the way. Bears releasing former Packers wide receiver Samori Toure. Nope, not for us. Nope. No. Carson Wentz. All right, so here's all the official trades. All right, so trade winds are blowing. We'll see if the Jets are able to do anything else today. And but as of right now, all quiet on the Jets front as far as the roster is concerned. All right. Well, with that being said, we'll call it a day. Thanks for joining me on Coffee with Frankie. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe. We're trying to get up to 1,000 subscribers. We would like your help with that. This is the Frankie Sports Programming Network, FSPN, and we're trying to compete with ESPN. ESPN is a gigantic Goliath owned by Disney, which is another gigantic Goliath behind a Goliath. And we're here like David with a little tiny slingshot and a rock, and we're trying to compete with ESPN here on FSPN. So we would appreciate your support in the form of a subscription, which costs nothing, in the form of liking the video, in the form of joining the inner circle. You know, we got a membership group, for example. And let me just show a little something of what the members get. You know, if you're a member here, what does that mean? What do you get for your money? Because for that, you got to give money, actual money. So we put out things like this, and this is just one example. Let's take a look of what you get when you're a member. The inner circle. Today, we put out a couple of pages from the Eagles' defensive playbook. Would you like to know what the Eagles run? Well, we got a couple of pages from their playbook right here. Tight, tough, eagle, bird, roll, rip, roy, rip, deep, badoo. Look at all these things they're doing. Cheat, flex, rush, this, that, the other. So this is just one example. You get many different playbooks. You get the rule book. You get lots of stuff like this, including the roster. Like, do you want this? You want this? You want this spreadsheet? We have it. Well, you get it. All the members have access to this. And then whenever anything happens, you know, I update this. And this also has, like, when we were looking at this here, we did a color-coded thing on who's a blue chipper, who's a red chipper, who's average, who's below average, who's a UDFA, who's a roster fringe, you know, and then you get access to this because I keep this updated as things go on. Also keep track of everybody that's released, for example. And when that happens, just in case you want to feel nostalgic about Mario Goodrich or something, we keep track of it all. So members get this, they get playbook stuff, they get everything. You want to know the NFL the NFL rule book, the actual rules from the NFL? We got that. We got draft guides. You want draft guides from the previous years, you know, that you got to pay for? Well, if you're a Frankie member, you don't got to pay for it at all. And I see Aaron Daniels became a member. So thank you, Aaron Daniels. The inner square. We got the inner circle. We got the inner square. We also got the inner triangle. So we got different levels, whatever fits your budget, you know, because, hey, everybody's got a different budget. So we got 3 different levels, and you get access to this stuff. And basically, you get access to folders that have all sorts of things. Any new music I create for the channel, you get access to that. Dick Chimney's Burners here. You know, I like this account here, Dick Chimney's Burner, but I still don't like looking at Dick Chimney's face. Even though this is like a parody account here, you got Dick Chimney's face in there. Still annoying. Phil Adams. Thank you. Shout out to Aaron Daniels. Yeah, absolutely. Aaron Daniels, thank you for your membership. And what we're looking at is one example of the type of things that I drop in the posts tab here. So for those that don't know, you should kind of always look at this posts tab here on YouTube. It's something they don't promote as much as I wish they would, but this is where interesting things get posted. This is where the links and the Passwords for the files get posted. So you're a new member, Aaron Daniels, remember to go to this posts part of YouTube. It's sort of a hidden part of YouTube. I wish they would do much more with it, actually. They could do so much more with this, but they refuse to for some reason. But this is where we post a lot of things. So just occasionally check on that, Aaron. You're a new member. This is where we post stuff. So, I mean, this is ripped right out of the Eagles playbook. I mean, this is a real thing. So thank you for signing up for that. We appreciate it as we try to compete with ESPN, the big Goliath. Dick Chimney says, that's fair. You're forcing me, even though you're making fun of Dick Chimney, which I appreciate. Also, you're making me look at his stupid face. I don't want to look at that face. Anyway, so thanks everybody. We'll be back on Saturday live stream for the Texas Ohio State game. Then we'll be back again on Sunday for Coffee with Frankie Sunday. If it's Sunday, it's Coffee with Frankie time at 10 a.m. And then we'll be back for opening day, actually. September the 7th, we'll be doing a live stream, so get ready for that one.